Okay, we're gonna start the meeting now. It's 6:05. Um, dude, I haven't done one of these in so long. Oh my god. Okay, my name is Javier. I am one of the officers at SCAD. I am an environment artist and concept artist. I've been working in the industry for a little bit now, so I kind of wanted to do a demo that's been asked for a long time, which kind of revolves around using 3D for environment painting. I'm not gonna do an entire painting demo purely because these take a really long time to make. They take a couple of hours at a time to make, and we just don't have that kind of time. So I'm gonna walk you through some of the process that I've found works pretty well for me when developing paintings. This isn't necessarily specific to concept, but a lot of times in your career or even in your classes, you're gonna be asked to paint one of the concepts that you've created. And you need to be able to do that in a way that is convincing and looks pretty good. Like, I think making pretty paintings is something that we all kind of want to do. If you don't, I don't know. Maybe this isn't for you. But yeah. So integrating 3D into your workflow as a visual development artist is unfortunately not optional. I know a lot of people are very strong in their drawing skills. You feel very strong in your perspective skills, your lighting skills, your ability to describe material detail via painting might already be very, very strong. But if you're getting paid hourly and you don't know how to block out something in 3D before you paint it to make your job faster and easier, they're gonna pick someone else. If it's between two people of equivalent painting skill, one of them knows 3D and the other one does not, they're gonna go with the guy that knows 3D. It's just a fact of life, unfortunately, so learn it. While you're here, you have access to some of the most incredible 3D software on the planet. Use it to your advantage. Also, it's really expensive. Why would you not want to use it? Like I said, at Mess Studios, it's very fundamental. It's going to be a requirement in a lot of the job descriptions that you're going to be reading. And it leaves you more time to focus on storytelling and the narrative intent in your paintings when you're not having to figure out perspective 45 different ways, Like I said before, you should know how to draw in perspective. You should know how to paint in your own lighting or draw a million of the same object, but you shouldn't have to, especially, again, when you're being paid by the hour. You're not being paid per project. Unless you are, that's kind of way cooler. But that's probably not going to happen. Yeah, here's a really ugly 3D blockout, and then here is what I was able to do with it. Here's another super ugly 3D blockout. This one's a little more elevated and developed. This one's a lot more fully modeled, purely because I was given this assignment to paint a bunch of pots, but why would I draw out every single pot if I don't have to? I would just model it, duplicate them, and it makes my job so much easier. And that's how I was able to create this. So why are these out of order? Dude, okay, so here's some of the recommended classes that I would recommend if you would like to learn more 3D. Animation 190 is kind of that fundamental class that you have to take in animation in order to take some of the other VFX classes. VFX 210 is a great introductory class to 3D tech. You're going to be learning a lot of 3D modeling, texturing, lighting, a little bit of rigging and constraints, but that's not really relevant. I would say the most relevant skills you're going to need to learn are modeling and texturing. Also, a little bit of lighting, I think, can really help if you're not the strongest in lighting. It can definitely elevate your paintings a lot more using lighting procedurally as opposed to kind of painting it in by hand, especially for something like this. Ew, that would be horrible to paint by hand. All those little pots, all those little holes, all those round objects. Why would you want to do that by hand? Again, unless you really want to, I don't know. Game 3.3 is another really, really good option. They teach you procedural modeling, holy crap. Which is very, 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 very good to learn. If you're going into game as well, that's going to be very, very valuable. Procedural modeling as well also teaches you how to be a lot more efficient with modeling, how to reuse assets in a way that's intelligent and smart. I think is another really good skill to learn. So where to start? Thumbnailing first. You don't want to just start putting stuff into your 3D scene just all willy-nilly. I like to go in with some sort of a plan or some sort of research into what I'm actually constructing. Especially for interior environments or actual tangible architecture, you want to do your research into how things are built before you actually construct them in 3D. I like to use a lot of primitives, so a lot of big squares and rectangles and cylinders to kind of build up first before I go into any kind of fine detail modeling or object modeling. I think it helps you when you're moving around your camera, you can kind of see the focal point if you're drawing a lot more quickly through big obvious shapes as opposed to fine detail. Refining. If you don't know modeling, that's totally okay. I would say if you can learn modeling, that's going to be a great skill to have. I think at a higher level of viz dev, you need to learn how to model yourself. But there's obviously a workaround for this if you're just doing quick paintings for class or just need something to kind of proxy to paint on top of. Sketchfab is a great resource. There's 1,000,001 websites where you can get free 3D models. But I like Sketchfab because it gives you the least viruses, I'm pretty sure. If you know anything about kit bashing, it's kind of like taking pieces of 3D models and then putting them back together in a way that suits your needs. What you never want to do, oh my God, please don't do this. I see this happen in classes all the time. Someone just takes, like, do you see this like little building here? Someone would just like take that, place it in a 3D model, and then just paint on top of it, and that's it. Like, that's all they do. They don't manipulate the geo in any way. That's pretty much just stealing a set that already exists. What you never want to do is just take an asset, put it in the engine, and then paint on top of it. That's very bad, and it will get you in trouble. This is especially more obvious if you're using Unreal assets, like if you're using Unreal Engine, which I also recommend as well, in addition to Maya and Blender. A lot of the asset packs are very unique and they're very obvious. So if you're just using those asset packs in a way that isn't creative or inventive, someone's immediately going to know. Everyone in the industry is very familiar with the Unreal packs and can spot them from a mile away. Everyone knows who they are. It's like the same 3 artists making the same million sets, so everyone knows who you're stealing from. So don't steal full sets. Don't do that. That's very bad. You should be, like, say you wanted to use like just a little window. Use those windows to populate it on a different kind of building, something like that. There's tons of inventive ways to be using geometry to your advantage as opposed to just ripping off models that already exist. Final kind of pass on your 3D model is going to be lighting. If you like to do lighting, that's a really good way, I don't know, to kind of just put it in there for like, it's easier to paint with the suggestion of lighting already there because your models are going to be very flat otherwise. Also, to get a good render, you need a light because if there's no lights in your viewport, it will just be black and there's nothing to see. If you're painting exterior environments, I highly recommend the AI Physical Sky. You can adjust like the elevation, you can adjust the time of day, the angle of the sun in your, I think, channel blocks, I'm pretty sure, or something like that. AI also doesn't mean AI, so don't be scared. It's not AI. It's like Arnold integrated or something like that. Wait, they can't see anymore. This is bad. Wait. Oh, Discord just updated. Okay.
Oh.
Awesome.
Oh my god.
Thank you, Discord. Very
Thank
cool.
you, Discord. Very cool. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Okay, we're back. Are we back?
I did want to hop in too. I don't think Game 333 is procedural modeling. That's the ZBrush class.
Then it's game 336. My bad.
That's why, yeah.
Or it's
236 and then 336 is the follow-up.
Shit, guys. It's 236. It's definitely 236. It's not 333. Can we see the screen again? Amazing. Stream ended? Question mark?
What?
No, it's fine. I just thought it was funny that they added a question mark. Okay, so I think we're going to continue. Again, AI Physical Sky isn't AI. It's like Arnold, so don't be alarmed by that. I would say also lighting interiors is a little bit more difficult. Everything just looks kind of really corny in an interior. I don't know why. You'll just kind of have to like paint around that. Yeah, use your camera to your advantage. You can kind of play with the focal length and stuff as well to make your composition a lot more interesting. It makes kind of more the perspective a little more dramatized as well. I was gonna open up Maya and show you guys how to do all of this, but there's actually not Maya on the computers at Adler. So unfortunately that part of the demo has been destroyed, functionally destroyed. So I'm really sorry about that. I would have loved to kind of go over Maya because it's actually quite easy to use once you learn the controls. And it's really, really beneficial to get into. I would say also in this final stage, I didn't put it on the slide. I would say local color for some of your objects might also help if you're not super fluent with the kind of blend modes in Photoshop, because using blend modes on a black and white kind of base is going to be really, really helpful for you. So if you're not super into that, I would go ahead and color your objects, your geometry, using the hypershade. It's really easy. Just put in an AI standard surface and you can change the roughness to kind of about what you want your object to be to kind of show its like reflectiveness. And just like a basic flat color should be enough to work from when you're like rendering out a scene. Someone has a question.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
So in that case, if you were to color your stuff in like your 3D program, would you actually have to worry about your topology and you can't just kind of like fuck around and find out?
Well, no, actually, my small friend. You only need, so if your geometry sucks in Maya, if you're just putting it, if you're getting, okay, this is hard to explain without Maya open, but what you should be able to do is you open up your hypershade, you select AI standard surface, you can just play with the colors. You can play with whatever color you want.
With color doesn't matter.
And then it's just, it's one solid color. It's not like you're applying like a texture to it.
Okay.
I mean, it is technically a texture, but it's not. So it's a really good way to just kind of have like that local color there, so that when you do render, all of your color information is already there. But yeah, if your geometry sucks, it also doesn't matter. So that's another thing. You don't have to be that good at modeling to do this. It's actually super easy. But if you do want some nice renders and you want your renders quickly, having good geo does help with render times. So just be aware of that. Yeah, okay, we're moving to Photoshop now. So let me set that up. Oh my God. Again, this demo isn't going to be like start to finish painting purely because it would just take way, way, way too long. But I think it's beneficial to kind of show you the workflow so that you can kind of replicate it on your own in your own style. I think this is applicable to kind of anything that you might want to do. But I'm going to kind of open up Photoshop here. This is the Hobby Pottery House. Okay. This was an assignment for a foundations class, actually, and I'm going to break it down for you. I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning. Someone in this room asked me, is that just multiply layers? And I said, absolutely not. And I'm going to show you exactly why. So here's the raw render that I was able to start with. Obviously, I modeled the crap out of this, but a lot of it was just a lot of duplicated geometry. Like all the pots are kind of, I think there's only like 3 or 4 different kinds of pots that I just kind of squish and stretch. And then I got a render in black and white. I used the AI physical sky to kind of get that shaft of light in the center of the drawing, or in the center of the composition, sorry. And that's what I started with. The thing you're going to want to establish first is your kind of value structure. So this is kind of where I'm playing around with the values. I'm just kind of bumping up some of the dark spots. So that way, as I'm painting, I can choose to push back some of the darkest values into the background to kind of emphasize the composition a little bit more. This is also where I add in like some additional information and then give it like a general color. You can do this very easy with a color layer. It can literally be any color you want. I'm just gonna put blue because I think blue could be really fun for this. Someone left, that's really embarrassing. Not for them, for me, sorry. So yeah, you can go in and select a color layer. And then you can kind of just play with the opacity. This should be like the overall color that you kind of want for your drawing. Here I went with orange because I'm going for like clay. It's like based on this like Mediterranean house. So I wanted a lot of like really rich kind of warm oranges. So that's why I went with orange. Here I'm kind of just adding in some local color. This I think I do with multiply layers. Yeah, I'm doing this with, ew, wait, oh my gosh. With a lot of multiply layers, and that's kind of how I'm just adding in some like local color information into the drawing. So all of the pots are kind of different values of like reds and kind of brick colors. There's some oranges and yellows. But this is where I'm varying up and breaking up the composition through color since the value structure is kind of already established. Sorry to ask, was this drawn or 3D first? So this is 3D. Yeah, this is a 3D model, and I'm kind of showing you how to use that to paint faster. Here I'm also playing around with some other blend modes as well to kind of warm up the scene and kind of push away from some of those really, really dark values that I was talking about earlier. When you're working with layer modes, use them to your advantage. Like, I'd say the benefit of these layer modes is they're super non-destructive and they're very, very easy to manipulate. You can mask out certain sections. You can use it to push back certain values. You can use it to bring out certain values. You can use it to shift the color to a completely different mood. I think using them to your advantage will only help you. I know a lot of people are kind of sticklers about it, but I think they're a really great tool. The next pass I kind of do is with light. Here I'm kind of adding a bloom. I'm imagining that this kind of light in the center of the composition is like a very, very bright patch of sunlight. And obviously sunlight at that kind of volume it's very, very bright and it will kind of radiate. It will bounce off the things around it. I imagine this is made of sand and brick, maybe something like adobe, all of which are actually somewhat reflective when they are a lighter color. So I try to consider that as well. I try to consider the materials in the drawing as well. Obviously, like ceramic pots aren't the most reflective thing in the world, but some are fired, some are not fired, some are reflective, some are not. So I try to consider how the light is behaving outside of what's already been established in the 3D model that I've made. I think that can really help. We kind of move to this like adjustment layer where I'm kind of playing with some cooler colors. This is beneficial in a lot of ways as well. Just another great way to kind of break up the sections of the painting. And a great way to push certain things into the background. Like with this green, I'm able to push kind of like these top corners and bottom corners out of this like center kind of orange section without actually having to like darken it in any way. I think something that we get comfortable doing is just shading things into obscurity, but you don't always need to do that with a darker color. I think playing around with like, I don't know, just like these normal modes can actually work out pretty nicely. And then this is kind of where I get into detail. This is the layer on top of everything else. I really like photo bashing. I wish I had saved and preserved a lot of the layers that I was using previously. I wasn't able to preserve them all because, again, I did this for an assignment and I wasn't actually anticipating using this for this demo. But a lot of the sections of the wall here, I actually used a little bit of photo bashing. So I was able to take images from online, free images, and kind of manipulate them to the drawing. Like here, I put them in perspective and used them for this column to kind of indicate some like stony and chalky, almost kind of detail. Another thing that you want to consider in your painting is also just the description of materials. Description of materials is going to be extremely important because if everything is kind of rendered the same way, it's all going to look the exact same and no one's going to know what's what. I think there's some things to be implied. Like obviously buildings can only be made out of so many things, but if you're rendering it like plastic, it's going to look like plastic. I think another things that recruiters will often look for is your ability to describe certain materials. If everything that you're rendering looks functionally the same, that's not valuable to a 3D modeler. That's not valuable to anyone on your production. I think it's also important to realize that like your concept art isn't just living in obscurity. It's often being used for a specific purpose. If I was giving this painting to someone, which I wouldn't because it's like a chud painting, but if I was giving this to someone to like model, is my description of materials good enough for someone to know that these are ceramic pots or are they made out of a certain thing? I mean, maybe, but this probably at this stage would not be the best example of like what the materials in this kind of drawing are made out of. So I try to consider that as well, and it's something that I highly encourage you to do. Studies of specific materials can really, really help you. Use photo bashing to your advantage, but don't rely on it because it will look weird if like you don't know how to use it properly. I think we did a thing a while ago on photo bashing.
Standing did one.
Standing did a photo bashing demo. I knew it.
Yeah.
Standing is awesome. He's really good at photo bashing. I think it's on YouTube. So it's not on YouTube. Is it on YouTube? It should be on YouTube.
I'll check.
So it might be on the SCAD YouTube, this photo bashing demo that I'm talking about. But using photo bashing kind of in tandem with your painting can really, really help elevate your paintings. Hold on. I just want to check the chat because I'm scared I'm going to miss things. Bro, okay, anyway, yeah, where's I at? So photo bashing, again, you don't just want to kind of superimpose photos on their own. You kind of want to know how to manipulate them, remove things, paint on top of them. It's not on YouTube?
No.
Dude! Well, I'm glad YouTube isn't my job anymore. Like, okay, anyway. And here, again, is where I wish I had preserved the layers because a lot of times I will just kind of paint on one layer. That's bad. Don't do that. This is something I'm very guilty of. I kind of just take one layer and just paint and paint and paint and paint all on one layer. I lasso tool things out and just put them all on one layer because it's easier for me. But typically you want to have your like photo bashing layers, your color layers, everything on one different layer. Because a lot of times your paintings will be passed on to someone else and it's easier for them to kind of manipulate it if it's already like broken up into different pieces. If all of your details are on different layers, it makes it a lot easier. It also makes it easier to go back and edit. But here you can see more of the photo bashing that I'm talking about. Here on like, oh my gosh, I hate Max. On the bottom left side of the drawing, I actually used a photo here to kind of add some texture to the wall. It's a little bit obvious there, I think, but I kind of use that on all of the walls in this painting. I just kind of distort the image to the specific perspective that I want. And then kind of use it to my advantage. I do a little bit of painting on top. I try to break it up a little bit so that it doesn't just look like one PNG slapped on top of it, which again, I wasn't very successful with in this bottom left part of the drawing. But I think it really just adds a lot more of the kind of, material information that you need in a painting like this. I think another thing that I would say is also pushing back some of the shininess that you're gonna get in some of your renders. I think it's better to have your models be a little bit more reflective than the materials that you want than to be less so. I think it's infinitely harder to make something look more metallic from something that is very, very flat than it is the other way around. So you'll notice that in a lot of the pots that I rendered out, the bright highlights are being removed or kind of like painted out, so that they're a lot less harsh. So that way it looks, I don't know, more like a wet clay than something like porcelain or something shiny like that, because that's not the material that I'm trying to kind of put into this drawing. Let me zoom in. So here, like you'll see here, is kind of that little area that I'm talking about, where if I turn off kind of some of these layers, you'll see the original, or I guess not. What did I do? Okay, where's the one I'm talking about? I think here, yeah, you'll see like this shiny bit here, and then here as well, that I kind of like smudged away. I think I got through that a little bit too fast because it's like 6:30 and I'm like, but yeah, like I said, I had planned to do a Maya demo in the beginning to show you guys how to set up all of these lights and the geometry and stuff, how to use the Sketchfab models. But that was going to be like a pretty substantial part of the demo, but I didn't realize that Adler didn't have Maya on the computers. So that's really unfortunate, but I would love to do another demo on setting up sets in Maya if you guys are interested, because I do think it's a very, very good skill to have. It's also super easy. I promise you it's so easy. A lot of people are very scared of 3D, but you shouldn't be. Like I said, there's a lot of really awesome classes that you can take to kind of elevate your skills as a modeler, which again is extremely important. So if we want to do a Maya demo at some point, let us know. Because again, that's how you can kind of get through paintings like this very fast. I think modeling this took me about an hour, and then doing all of the painting took me about 2 hours. So if I had done this by hand, it would probably take me a lot longer. It would probably take me like, I don't know, I was going to say 6 or 7. That would have been crazy. But like genuinely, it probably would have taken me 6 or 7 hours to complete this by just like sketching out the perspective by hand, painting everything by hand. But because I'm manipulating some of my tools that SCAD gives me for free, you can do this a hell of a lot faster and a hell of a lot more efficiently. So yeah. Any questions? Yes.
When you're determining like how you want to light the piece in terms of like mood and color, what do you take inspiration from?
Okay, so they asked, when I'm tackling lighting and mood, how do I kind of decide what that mood should be? What do I research, etc. I'm not gonna lie, that's kind of vibes based, but like finding the research to support that. So I would say referencing, I don't know, that's actually a really good question. Well, dang it.
I can say something.
Chris, say something.
So I think you want to research what you want to go for first. So obviously, like whatever environment you're trying to go for, you want to think about what kinds of things naturally like that scene. So like obviously, if we're in this room, obviously there's like the spotlights that are kind of shining on us. So those are obvious places where you can think of where things will naturally be lit. You can think of, if you have a character or any other props that are going to be introduced, how they can be added into the composition to kind of add more of that light. But for the most part, kind of what Javi's just saying is like it's meant to be played around with because light can be like fluid across the composition. You want to thumbnail those options for yourself to see what like scene that you're coming up for.
And like what Chris is saying, that is absolutely true. Like using the functional lighting of your set is also going to be extremely important. Interiors, that's a little bit more specific because again, like, well, it would also depend on like the context of your scene as well. But also a lot of times lighting is very much fudged in a lot of games and a lot of films and a lot of TV. None of the lighting that is in there functionally makes sense to where they're actually shooting or the set that they've actually built. And that can come from also like Chris was saying, like the lights in here, if they were turned off, that would give a whole completely different mood to the environment. So changing those things as well is a great way to start. But also referencing existing art is another great way to get inspired for mood. I would say it's kind of hard to get those like super fantastical types of drawings where the environment and mood is very pushed, where things are a very specific kind of color that doesn't exist in real life. I would say referencing other people's art, because in real life you're just not going to get that. And I think finding something that's already processed by someone else can be really helpful as well.
I will say too, lighting in a lot of ways is a compositional tool. Just with how you set up your value structures, light is what is defining that, right? And a good way to practice and look at that is doing no-tan studies, which is where you take an existing piece of artwork or a photo and you just use black and white and mark out what is in the light, what is in the dark, and then see how that patterns out. And you're going to get a lot of things that are very clear in the shapes if it's a well-composed image, just based on how the light is hitting things. So using your light as a tool more so than just how something is actively being lit up to guide the viewer's eye through a composition to highlight what's important. Like with this piece, obviously the light is right in the middle. It's guiding you directly up to that most interesting part, which is the forge, which is defining what is going on in the rest of the area. It gives you context to what we're seeing. And then the rest of it is breaking that up into interesting, complex shapes. So being able to look at things and just breaking them down smaller and smaller into a puzzle piece so that you both have that composition and are thinking about your big little small, your movement from the very start, as soon as you get into thumbnails.
Yeah, just working in grayscale is really helpful. If you want to turn on like a grayscale checker, you can obviously use saturation, but the better way to check is if you go to the top and change your viewing settings from custom to docking 20%. It gives you a much better understanding of your actual values, because saturation just takes away the saturation splatter of the color wheel and just makes it nothing. But it doesn't actually give you the right saturation of your composition. So docking is what actually gives you like a better grayscale value of your composition.
And then you can toggle command line, and it's really useful.
I love the color layer the most, because if you just set it to black or gray or white, whatever is like on the most left to that square, it will just switch the values, or not switch the value, it'll switch off the color. So all your values are preserved by whatever is underneath it. So as you can see, like even as I'm taking away certain things from this drawing, you can see how the value structure of the drawing is changing. It's just a really great way to hold yourself accountable to the value structure that you've previously established. I'd say that's the biggest thing about adding color to black and white, and which is why it's like kind of the most optimal way to work is, again, coming back to that initial value structure that you've established. When you start going outside of that and just adding colors willy-nilly, and you're not really like being perceptive to how the value of that color is actually changing the overall structure of the drawing, that's where drawings start to look very confusing and very messy. So as you can see, even in this version where it's all black and white, you can see that shaft of light is still the kind of guiding light for that image, even though it has no color. So if your drawing works very well in black and white, it should hopefully work just as well in color if you're toggling this on and off. Any other questions? And these can be online too. I'll try to keep an eye out. Okay, are we done? Oh, here we go.
In terms of like doing your workflow, like would you recommend, so then you would recommend to start using black and white, but like by when do you think you should be ready to like start putting in colors and then start doing the switches?
So I would say, I think it depends on how strong you feel your skills are in composition, because I do feel that value is what will make and break a composition. So I would say if at this point, back where it had no color at all, is kind of where I feel the drawing was the strongest. So if for some reason I felt this was the optimal version of this drawing, I would start adding color. But I'm noticing, everything's a little bit samey, and the lighting is kind of all over the place. So if I was adding color by this point, I would say you can start at any time, so long as you're holding yourself accountable with this black and white layer. Because I think you'll notice the mistakes that you're making along the way. It's impossible to foresee where the drawing is going because you haven't painted it before, right? So I think it's important to realize that like things are going to change over time. There's not really going to be an optimal point to start. I think you just kind of have to start. But again, if I felt for some reason that this version was the strongest and I started adding color, I'm going to notice certain areas where, I don't know, it's too bright for like this. These pots up here are the same brightness as this here and as this here. That doesn't really work. I don't think it's nearly as compelling as something like this. So I think you can start at any time, again, so long as you're going back to that black and white version, because that's ultimately going to be like where you're seeing the values just straight up. So there's, like I said, there's not really going to be an optimal time to start, but I think developing it to a point where you feel confident that you can start adding color is probably going to be the best time to start, because it's not like there's no way to go back and check. I think just getting into it when you feel is the best time. If the drawing's fundamentally flawed from the beginning, you're going to notice very quickly when you're adding color. So I think it's kind of up to you, just as long as you're referring back.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Okay. All right. Sorry that was so short. I'm really sorry part of that demo got kind of cut. I really wanted to focus more on the 3D aspect of it. But yeah, I think that is everything from me. But thank you guys for coming out. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry again that it was cut short. You came all this way. But
Damn.
but yeah, thank you guys so much. All right.
Yeah.